Welcome, Legionnaires, to the Long Live the Legion podcast, where we talk about the Legion of Superheroes comic book team and break subjects down so that whether you're just out of the Legion Academy or you're a longtime veteran with your own flight ring, you get to know the team a little bit better. I'm your co-host, Jim.
And I'm your co-host, Jay.
And welcome to episode number 30. What do we have on the mission monitor board for today's episode, Jay?
We have a great episode today. We are going to do a spotlight on everybody's favorite super tall Legionnaire, Colossal Boy or Leviathan or Microlad, whatever you would like to call him. We also have a very special guest today, and it's really interesting how we got today's guest. I reached out on the Legion Discord server and basically said, would anybody like to come on and talk about their favorite Legionnaire? And that's how we ended up with Leia. So Leia, if you could just introduce yourself, let us know a little bit about you, that would be perfect.
Yeah, hi. I got into the Legion from the cartoon. In comparison, since you can't see, I'm much younger than Jim and Jay. But I read through the Legion comics when I was in high school, pretty much all of them, and I am Jewish and noticed, hey, Colossal Boy is Jewish. That's interesting. He's one of the very few superheroes out there. So when you guys asked about Colossal Boy, I was like, you know what? I do have some things I would like to say about Gim Allon. Gim Allon, either way is fine.
Yeah, I think just to make everything easier today, as much as I will fight this to my core with, I want to say Gim every single time, I'm going to go to what most people have said, and we're just going to say Jim. But I know, Jim, you yourself have a big comment on his name, so please share.
Right. Well, I guess, so for the longest time, and I know I think back at our Christmas episode, or the holiday episode, we kind of made fun of this a little bit with regards to Jim versus Gim, because I'm obviously, with my name, I always end up preferring the Jim option. But a kind of a funny thing happened in the last few weeks as we record this. The Winter Olympics in Milan just concluded about a week ago. And I was watching it, and I was watching curling, everybody's favorite sport. And I was watching the Koreans play. And the captain or the skip of the Korean team, her surname was Gim, and they pronounced it Gim. And I looked into this a little bit, and it is a variation of the surname Kim in the Korean culture. And so I was like, well, I had this sudden rush of backstory in my head that happened where Colossal Boy's mother and father had a good friend, or his father served with somebody from a Korean background whose name was Gim, and so he named his son in honor of his friend. So that was my little backstory. And, and I think that works from somebody who is from Earth, right? So that's the other thing about Colossal Boy, is that he's one of the Legionnaires that actually hails from Earth.
That's it's similar to one of my theories that I've had, that Dirk is actually either German or Dutch or something, because Dirk is a real name in those cultures that is still used.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And Morgana was just the misspelling of Morgan? Is that what we're going?
That is what I assumed.
Yeah, no, that's all good. It's really weird because, you grow up reading the comics, and it's going to be different for Leia because you're watching a TV show, so you're hearing how they pronounce it. So it's kind of funny, in my head as a kid, it was always Darkseid. And then I realized I was wrong. And in my head, it was always Gim, and and that's, because especially and we are dramatically older, that it is. You just don't have that. There was no TV show. There was no movie that you could get the pronunciation of. So in your brain, you stare at it and you go, well, this is how I think it should be said. And and it's true for tons of comic book characters. And then as I got older, I was like, I'm wrong about this, and I'm wrong about this, and I'm wrong about this. But in your brain, you just can't switch it. So yeah, so I'm fine either way. I love the Korean connection there. And by the way, as a Canadian, it's always fun when curling suddenly becomes this massively popular thing. Because we're used to it comes on TV and everyone's like, what the hell is this? What's going on? And I know all the rules, so I can actually sit there and say, oh, I get this. I understand. I can't curl. Let's just be honest. I can't do it. But it's one of those funny sports that if you don't, as soon as you see it and then you see the craziness. Oh, and by the way, when all the cheating controversy started, I was teleported back to my youth watching guys curl and just give each other crap as they're playing. And that one moment where he gets accused and he just turns to him and he goes, F off. And I'm like, I've seen that so many times. I've done that. That's just standard. So I was like, yep, I'm back home. So it's very fun. Sorry for the aside on curling. Any other Canadians who are listening will probably feel the exact same way. So, all right, let's get back to because now I want to say Gim. So I'm just going to say Gim Allon now. Screw this. I'm not going to be good today. All right, so let's talk about how he started or how he began or where's the first time that we saw Colossal Boy. So he's actually one of the oldest Legionnaires. Started in Action Comics 267, and he and Chameleon Boy joined in the exact same issue. So they're both created by Jerry Siegel, Jim Mooney.
Actually, Invisible Kid also debuted in that issue, but it was then later retconned that he was like the 6th or 7th to join after Colossal Boy and Chameleon Boy.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And he and to be honest, they didn't do a lot with him in the Silver Age. Like Colossal Boy was kind of always in the background.
He is what I believe is called a good background design, in that he has an iconic power, an iconic design that when you look at him in a lineup, you can go, the big guy, that's Colossal Boy. I know him. Yeah.
What is it that he does? What is his claim to fame? Obviously, it's kind of in the name, but let's just.
Did they ever decide how tall he could possibly get? Was there a limit?
No. So there is a mention when I was zipping through the Silver Age references. I think there was somewhere that said 25 feet. And I'm like, well, that's not right, because obviously they show him getting much, much bigger than that. So he grows big.
Yes.
He grows very big. I think he grows as big as the story needs him to grow.
Pretty much.
That's basically what it is. Like, he's got that great superpower where if they need somebody to hold up a building, he shows up. And like he was always the guy in the background wherever anything got destroyed. He's the one helping them as he's making sure nothing falls over. Or
yes,
he's the guy punching the ship.
He's the one reassembling a building like it's made of Legos.
Yes. He's also... and this is one I could never figure out, like, reading over, because it kind of, again, it changes issue to issue. Does he become just as strong as he gets big? Does he actually become super strong? Because there are moments where he's going toe-to-toe with Validus. And I'm like, okay, there has to be super strength involved here.
I just assumed that it was proportional, that
Yeah,
like
I
however
agree.
big he gets strong enough that he could, in theory, punch or lift whatever he needs to for that size.
Yeah. I mean, his Who's Who stats say that he's 6'2", 200 pounds normally, right? Which tells you he's a pretty beefy guy, right? He's
Puts
pretty
him right
built,
around the same size as like Batman.
Yeah, pretty much. So
Yeah. And then he also has a great 60s origin story where it's just like exposure to a meteorite and radioactivity gives him these powers, which I always kind of find funny, because like, why don't like 100 people run up to the meteorite and all go, hey, we can all get super big? But it's one of those where you can just tell, we needed another character. We had this cool design. We're not going to I don't want to say we're not going to put a ton of thought into it, but we have a month to tell this story, so we're not going to get into a lot of depth. And then his origin got a little bit retconned, but a little just more information was given in volume 3 when Levitz went back and told his secret origin. And then we see that he was dating Gigi Cusimano before they joined the SPs, and there's all of this background there. And again, like he's I think you put it best, Leia, he's a background player. Like, he's there in the background. And realistically, like, his next big moment is when his parents get kidnapped. And this is 8 years?
10 years.
10 years.
I think it was maybe, around that.
I looked. It was 1968 when that story happens.
Thank you. Like, the first time that he actually gets a spotlight story is so many years after he first debuts, and it's not even really fully about him. It's that his parents get turned to glass as like a way to take them hostage, so that somebody can convince him to steal the Legion's secret information.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. That story was actually one of my first introductions to Colossal Boy. Not that I'm old enough to have read that when it came out in 68, but back in the 70s, DC would always pump out those little digests, right? Where they'd reprint their Silver Age stuff. You'd see it in like a grocery store. It was like, $1.50 or whatever, and you'd get all these old stories. So that was my first, I remember the great cover of his parents being turned into glass. I remember reading that and going, oh, this is who this character is. I'm interested. I'm intrigued, because I didn't know he had basically done nothing for 8 years before that.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's all we have time for. There's really nothing else to talk about. So, Leia, thanks for joining us.
Great.
We will mute you pretty soon, just so you know. And by the way, just remember, I will be taking notes for the Shrinking Violets episode, because it's not like she's doing a ton until the 80s anyway. So we talk about this, and then when we get into the 70s, what I thought was really interesting is, for all the hacks on Jerry Conway as a writer when he's on the Legion, and there are many. He did two really key things for Colossal Boy. And the first one was he kind of gave him like a couple of personality traits. He's a bit of a klutz. Like he's kind of awkward. And I don't know who introduced the crush on Shrinking Violet, but it's in that era as well. And
God, I have that written down, I'm sure, somewhere.
Well, because I wanted to address this because we talked about this last time when we were talking about the Chameleon Boy arc, his story arc in the Levitz era. I was looking. The only story that I found that even kind of came close to something like this even happening or being something like this is Superboy and the Legion 202 from 1974 when Gim and Vi are on this mission in deep space and something happens to their ship and there's this kind of back and forth and Vi almost has to leave him stranded, but then they kind of figure out what the problem is and she rescues him. Or they figure it out and help each other figure out the situation. And that's like as close as I could find of anything. I couldn't really find anything that said Colossal Boy has a crush on Shrinking Violet. It's very specific.
I think I did find the actual issue is Superboy 219 from 1976. I think that's the first time that we actually really truly get like, oh, he very clearly has a crush on her.
Interesting. Okay.
Most of the issue is about him being jealous because Duplicate Boy is still dating her, and he's just like, why can't it be me?
Is that the one with the composite Legionnaire where they all get merged, or is that I'm probably misremembering, but
no, composite was 234.
Okay, because that's the one that I always kind of go to, like when they get merged together and then they're on Imsk, and I thought there was something there as well. But I could be misremembering because a lot of these 70s stories tend to kind of blur a little bit. Like
and this is why, I thank you for saying that, and I wrote this down, noted this, because 219 is in that gap that's not really published separately. So you have to kind of go through dark web means to find that gap of issues from the Bronze Age. So no, that's good. Thank you for noting that.
Yes, I did also take note that like Duplicate Boy gets knocked out or is injured in that issue, and Colossal Boy immediately tries to start making moves on her. He says, "Easy, baby, it's all over now. You didn't think I'd let him hurt my flower girl, did you?"
Romance in the 70s.
There you go.
Boy.
Jim doesn't waste any time, does he? Jeez.
Exactly. Hey, I mean, when they're on that asteroid, he makes the moves on her immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the one thing that I've kind of noticed. I mean, it's not as much a 70s thing, but more in the 80s when Levitz kind of took over, is that the personality trait that he gave him was more impulsivity. Like, I'm going to do things and I'm going to do them quickly. Like, even earlier on, I think in the first Levitz run, with was it the Composite Legionnaire issue? Was Levitz? I forget. But, like, Gim is trying to impress Violet. They're hunting, like, Imskian space dragons, and she's like, well, we need to get the scales off the dragon. He's like, got it, scales. And he just, like, goes to rip one off, and it immediately, like, lets out a blast of energy before Violet can even say, like, wait, no, don't do it that way.
Exactly right.
Yeah, but at least they were trying, right? Like, I mean, the joke has always been with the Legion that most of the male characters look the same, act the same, talk the same, and it's just the costume that tells you who they are. But at least with Colossal Boy, they were giving him a little bit of a difference. It wasn't a good thing, but at least it's something, right? Which is nice. And then the other big one, of course, is his mom, who then becomes this incredibly central background character. I got to be honest, I go back and I read how they pick the president of Earth in those old issues, and I kind of wish we were doing something like that today.
Yes.
I think it's like, hey, a university professor who's actually educated and understands world politics. Maybe that's a good idea for a president.
Not only that, but they specify that the system is based on the idea of a good president should be brought into the White House kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
It's basically, for those of you who don't know, the president was based on a computer picking the most qualified, like 3 different people on Earth, and then the citizens have the ability to vote for who they like. So there's just this one issue. Also, they specify that Election Day is a holiday.
Yeah.
Awesome choice there. But yeah, like the issue starts out and they're like partying and they're trying to explain to Princess Projectra, who comes from a monarchy, what a democracy is and why the system is good. And yeah, they're looking at the candidates and then one of them is like, Jim, isn't that your mom? And he turns around and he's like, oh my God.
It's a great solution to the whole old adage of the people who actively seek out power are the people who should be kept away from it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and so it's a great, you get this great conflict between the two of them, and then the other big moment is 1980. Levitz canonically makes Colossal Boy
Yes.
Jewish,
In a Christmas
which
issue.
in a Christmas
right.
issue, right? As he's celebrating Hanukkah. And again, like it's this great thing to give this character a little bit more depth. And from what I understand, it really just came from him going, Allon, that's a Jewish name. I'm just going to go
Yes.
with that.
I mean, from what I understand, yeah, he saw the name Allon, which, I mean, all the future names were spelled weird. I'm sure that Jerry Siegel just meant it as a misspelling of Allen. Levitt saw it and is like, oh, that is actually a Jewish surname. Like, I can use that. And I don't blame him for wanting to do that, because in early 1980, there were pretty much no confirmed Jewish superheroes in the big two comics. Like, a lot of people think of like, oh, Ben Grimm, he's been around since the 60s. I looked this up. He had not been confirmed to be Jewish on panel until 2002.
Yeah,
until then,
about that. Yeah.
Until then, Jack Kirby had just kind of implied it, and it was well known amongst his like friends and family. At that time, Kitty Pryde didn't exist. Magneto was not confirmed to be a Jewish character until much later. So I'm not surprised that Levitz was like, this is an opportunity for me to put representation for myself into the comic. And he made a move that lasted until now. I checked, and pretty much every other iteration of Colossal Boy ends up still having a little Easter egg that is like, yep, this version is also Jewish in this universe.
Yeah.
It's oftentimes pretty subtle, but it's there.
Bendis was the only one I didn't see one for, but yeah.
Bendis has one.
Oh, he does? Okay.
It's one of those long pages that the entire thing is written in interlac. They're explaining that the cafeteria that they have has like all different options of food from across the universe, and then at the very bottom it says kosher options available.
Okay, all good.
Yep. No.
Yeah.
It's good to see
like
because
that.
it's got to be great. Like if you're a writer, you're trying to figure out how do I connect to 20, well, at the time, 22, 20, and then whatever the supporting characters are. How do I make these connections? And then he found this nice little in. Now, there were a few, I mean, I think there's a few moments where he writes Colossal Boy's mom as sort of that meddling Jewish mother that occasionally gets into but I mean, like, look, Levitz is Jewish. He can write Jewish however he wants. I'm not going to criticize that.
On one hand, it's a stereotype, but if Levitz was writing it from his own experience, I wouldn't be surprised if he was like, this is what I'm writing from my own life.
Yeah, it's good. And then, of course, what we talked about on the last episode, the big thing with Colossal Boy that Levitz does is he gets married to an imposter.
Yes.
And as previous guest Alex Segura said, like, and then took the difficult choice and kept them together and didn't turn it into a fight and didn't turn her into a villain, but made her into a regular supporting character, which was, I think, says a lot about Gim as a character that I think we kind of gloss over. Like, here's a guy who takes his vows seriously and takes his relationships seriously and doesn't just throw stuff away. Like, the easy one, and let's be honest, like, and I say this to the three of us, like, if you found out your partner was an imposter and not who you thought they were, and like your first response would probably not be, okay, cool. And I don't think they were married for a long time. Like,
right.
Like,
they were only married for what had to be like a month or two at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the whole Yera situation is almost like a fantasy to me. I'm like, this is the romantic ideal of, yes, your boyfriend decides, or he learns that maybe there's something different about you, or you didn't look the way that you used to, or something is changed, and he decides, no, I love you for you, not for how you looked or for what I thought. It's a fantasy in the way that I think most people would get hung up on the, no, you lied, or something is very, very different here that's going to make it more challenging.
Right.
But he does have that one moment where he's just like, well, can I get used to a Durlan wife? And she has this little like panic moment of like, I don't know, can you? And he immediately like, don't worry about it, like leans in for the kiss, like, of course I can.
Yeah. I mean, on one level, it's like, I think most people, in that situation, whether or not they're as stalwart a person as Gim or not, probably would be like, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying it's a fantasy. Like, most people in reality would never.
Right. And this is where I think, if it would have been better if they had introduced a little bit more drama around his decision so that we could kind of walk through that experience with him. So just as a kind of a similar example, right? I'm a big fan of the video game Cyberpunk 2077, and there is this side mission where a bartender friend of yours asks you to track his wife, kind of snooping on his wife because he's suspicious about her. And as part of that investigation in that little side gig, you find out that she is, over time, she has completely changed her appearance because she used to be, I think the way they say is that she used to be Hispanic, but now she's more Caucasian looking, and he's suspicious because their child doesn't look like them. Right. So he's kind of wondering about that. And so you track her down and you find out the story. And basically you talk to the guy and you're like, listen, she really loves you. What are you going to do? And if you interact it properly, they end up still staying together. But it was a very similar kind of situation. But in this case, right, the guy or the other person has serious complications about how he feels about that, right? But if you walk through it, you kind of help and it kind of comes to a resolution that makes sense versus just the comic book resolution of, oh, okay, I'm good. Which is a little bit weird.
Yeah, I mean, a good amount of their relationship does happen off screen. Like, their wedding is off panel. It's not just secret to everyone else, it's a secret to the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's more he wanted to get to the end game, right? Like the goal is I want a Legionnaire who's married to somebody who isn't a Legionnaire. And here's a character that we can do it with. We can do something really interesting. And so then you worry less about, okay, well, does this make sense? Or what does the audience need to see? And it's one thing, like, it's kind of funny when you reread the Levitt stuff. A lot of it is, and I think this comes from us having read comics in 2026, where they do have the time and the space to really expand all this stuff. But in 1983, they're just flying through these like multiple storylines. And I think if he had said like, yeah, I want to spend 5 extra pages showing this relationship, or I want to stretch this out, they'd be like, no, we have to move on to like this. And then also as well, when this is getting resolved, it's about the same time when DC is saying, hey, you're going to move to Baxter. We're going to relaunch the book. And Giffen is starting to say, I want off. Like, I want to go do something else. So I imagine he's juggling 50 things. And this is probably something where he just said, let's just resolve it. And we can have a lot of fun moving forward because and again, I think as well, like it's his way of showing like this is Gim's character. Like he's the kind of guy who, yes, it maybe isn't realistic and maybe we kind of look at it and go like, I wouldn't do it. But it's showing him to be this, like you said, stalwart. And I think like this guy who I don't want to say is always going to make the right moral decision, because you can again make the argument this maybe isn't the right moral decision, but at least in his mind, it's the right moral decision. And that's kind of who he is. And that's where we go. And that's the big one. And then kind of moving past that, like he gets, I mean, what would we say? Like he kind of just becomes married guy and kind of moves to the background again until the Starfinger story. Yeah.
I mean, at least for the rest of the original continuity, yeah, he gets like injured by Starfinger and he's kind of out of commission. And then 5 years later, he's just retired and with Yera. And in Retroboost, when they bring him back, he's once again just kind of Yera's husband again.
Yeah, but he's a little bit more from a Retroboost perspective, he is actually used more, I think, in a lot of good ways.
Like he's at least put front and center. Like I always made the comment that like, as you're reading Levitt's Legion, I've always said like, you couldn't tell who his favorites are. But when I get into Retroboost, the fact that he's throwing Colossal Boy front and center so much, I'm like, I think this is one of his favorites for the variety of reasons that we've just talked about. And there's the connection, there's the way he's expanded the backstory. Whereas like you can tell the ones who aren't his favorites, Dream Girl pretty much gets just shoved out of, it's like, hey, we're going to make you a horrible person and we're going to move you out. But anyways, so we move on to Reboot because I'm going to save the 5 years later rant until we get to like the worst parts of a Colossal Boy. And I don't want to do that yet. I got to build up my anger.
Well, before you move on, I just did want to circle back just really quickly and just to mention something. When was it? In Adventure 371 was when they had the blackmail story 10 years after the introduction of the character. I did want to point out that in 1982, they actually did...
Oh, the Best of DC 24 one?
Yes, they actually redid the story, which was kind of cool, I guess, but,
I mean, it's very Levitt's in that it's a callback to an issue from like 20 years ago that you will really only know if you are like an encyclopedia of Legion issues.
Exactly. So I just wanted to mention that we had that separate story because it's a very specific focus on Colossal.
Yes.
And I would say as well, getting a story in a Legion comic book that the only way you'd really get is if you were an encyclopedic, if you had encyclopedic knowledge of the Legion, just described the Levitz run, the Giffen run, 5 years later, reboot. Like it seems to be like if you're writing the Legion, you almost have to, it's like,
I mean, to be fair, most writers of the Legion were aware of just how niche the Legion was and how just rabid the Legion fan base was for many decades. Like, this was the fandom to make those kind of callbacks for. They would get it.
yeah. Yep, I agree. Okay. Do we want to move to reboot and
Yes. Yeah, we can move.
Okay. So, well, anyways, so he becomes Leviathan. I mean, during 5 years later, that's when he first gets the Leviathan title, the SB6 version.
Yeah.
Does he do? I mean, he doesn't. Anyways, 5 years later, we'll move on. Reboot.
Well, let's put it this way: this SW6 version of Gim Allon has a lot more action than the actual OG version does, just from a adventure and characterization standpoint,
and doesn't turn into a jerk, which was nice for most of these characters, because that seemed to be what they did with every male character who wasn't married or
That was definitely my
lad.
reaction to most of the SW. I was like, why are they all dicks now?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I couldn't figure that one out. Okay, so we get the reboot. He's Leviathan. He gets assigned to be the team leader, which I thought was a really interesting choice. And they really leaned into him as like former SP, trained and as a cop.
Yeah, they basically just used the same retrofitted origin that Levitz gave him from V2. So, yeah.
But they make it more clear that, like, he has the attitude of a police officer. Like, he goes into it with the idea of, like, all right, everybody's going to listen to my commands. We're going to do things by the book. Everything's going to go to plan. And he realizes immediately that that is not how anything is going to work. Yeah, he carries the weight of Quantum Kid's death for pretty much the entire run. It really hangs around his neck.
Yep.
But Cosmic Boy has that great speech to him of like, look out at the stars, and every star is going to represent something that we're going to do wrong. And yet, it is a beautiful scene. Like, we're going to make mistakes and they're going to happen, but we're going to come out on top. And I want you to be on that team with me. Like, it shows the difference in their types of leadership skills, because Rock is coming at it from a sports team. Like, yeah, everybody's got their own strengths. We're not all going to follow orders. We're going to all work together. Whereas Gim is kind of learning, like, oh, I never even thought about it this way.
Yeah.
And very much looks to Rock as the more experienced leader, no matter what the UP is telling them they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great.
They also make it so that Gim is like the Mars representative for the UP, because it's a draft.
Yeah, even though he's human, his planet of origin is Mars. Exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then of course the unfortunate thing for me is they make this really interesting character. They kind of set up, I guess, a little bit of a triangle with him and Kinetics and Violet.
I'd say it's a triangle. He has that like crush on Zoe, and at the same time Violet is interested in him. I guess it's a twist on how he was originally interested in Violet in the original.
And then he dies, which is kind of like every Leviathan story after a reboot. Like, they just like killing him. They kill him in Superboy's Legion. How many of his skeletons show up in the most recent Absolute, like the Dark Season?
Even Superboy Prime is like, oh, they're going for shock value. That's like at least 3 Colossal Boys.
Yeah. And I thought it was kind of, I mean, whenever a character dies, you sort of go like, is it a waste because there was so much more potential of what they could have done? Or is it, this is a great moment? Like Kid Quantum dying, I think they had written him as like, okay, this guy just exists to be
First Legion,
to affect the other characters and to get them to be more responsible.
And he is the reason for why they have that very strict no machines rule.
Exactly.
Yeah. But with Leviathan's death, I mean, it was more. I mean, I think it just sets up everything that happens to Violet for the next couple of years. But I think they missed out on the potential of doing a ton of stuff that they could have done. And he was one of the really developed characters. So like, let's be honest. We've said this multiple times. Would you rather have read Leviathan stories or Ultra Boy stories at this point in time? And I think it's a pretty safe thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, to be fair, they do make it clear, because that whole Emerald Vi storyline, like, everybody is getting their quote unquote heart's desire. And for Leviathan, that is to be a hero. And in that story, he ends up sacrificing himself and saves the rest of them. So he does get the whole hero's death. Is that a good end to his story? Probably not, but it is a fair death, I would say.
Yeah.
Considering that everybody was kind of getting what they wanted in a twisted way.
Yeah, it worked for the story for sure. And also, and kind of like what you said, Jay, it really set up Violet to really have kind of a really incredible arc for the rest of the run. My only problem with it actually was that once that happened, we never saw Gigi again. She was never actually, we saw her at his funeral, and that's it. She's never really referenced ever again in the reboot.
See, my problem with it, I think this is coming as a dad, was the funeral where the parents acted like they were ecstatic. Yeah, like they were acting like they were ecstatically happy their kid had died in battle. And
Well,
I remember just reading it.
Happy.
Well, no, but I mean, like they were like, this is exactly what he wanted. There's nothing. And I'm just like,
yes, his dad has this like proud moment of like, my son was a soldier who died in battle. And it's quite a reaction.
The choice. Yeah, I mean, obviously it was there to set up the opposition in.
Yeah, it's meant to show how extreme Tinya's mom is being about this.
Exactly. Yeah. A difference of philosophy, I guess. Extreme differences of philosophy.
And maybe it's because for me, that was one of the moments. And like Tinya's mom is written as just this horrible harpy for the entire thing. But I remember just sitting there going like, like if I had and I have a 16-year-old kid, like if he was out doing this, I'd be like, let's keep this safe. Like I really, I'm kind of I'm in favor of like, let's make sure these kids come home alive. Like,
I mean, maybe this does say more about his parents in the fact that like they were already letting their kid become a cop. Like they already probably had the expectation that something like this might happen, whereas the rest of the Legionnaire parents maybe did not.
Yeah. And in the reboot as well, I want to say in the main continuity, because I think I can't remember exactly where it was referenced. I was looking and I couldn't find it. His father is an admiral in the UP Navy. So at least he was in the reboot.
That is in the original too, because I was rereading that issue that goes back to his background when he first got his powers. And when they're talking about it, because they're like, well, what are we going to do? Like, is the SP going to station me somewhere where like my powers would be more useful? Because he wants to stay with Gigi. And his dad is like, well, maybe I can pull some strings with the UP powers or something. Like, so it's implied that he does have some kind of position.
Yeah, because he has some kind of really fancy uniform, as I recall. Because that's one of the retro adventure comics. Is that right? Where that happens? I don't know if you've gotten there, Jay.
If it's there, I haven't gotten there yet. I believe you. And then I think the next time we see him and we don't see him, we just see when Kinetics dies, she calls out for Colossal Boy. So that was a nice touch, right? That's the only other time we reference Leviathan after his death. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm joking, but yes.
I was just going to say that there was I guess they were trying to seed a theory that by getting bigger was because it was similar to how Apparition had kind of hidden herself within Ultra Boy, where maybe, Jim is somehow, his spirit is somehow inside Vi. And then, when they had that whole scene with RJ, he was like, nope, he's gone. Get over it. Here's your new powers.
And then Violet takes over his role as background character who they draw big for no reason whatsoever. Yeah. But it's a great, because we've complained about this multiple times. The great thing of like, hey, cool, Violet's not doing anything, but she's bigger than everybody else for no logical reason whatsoever. And
yeah. I mean, they still give her a couple really good spotlight episodes up till the end of the V4 run. Then after that, not so much.
Yeah, it's kind of gone. Okay. Is there anything else about Reboot that we missed? I know I was joking about how nothing else happens, but he does. He is good as sort of the reminder for everybody, and he's good as like this.
Yeah.
Like I think they honored his memory well as it continued because he was, his loss affected so many of the characters. I thought that was really well done. But so he kind of became the Pharaoh lad of Reboot, where he was the guy who everybody sort of was reminded of, and they all missed him and they would talk about him. But I mean, again, I still make the cases. I don't think they should have killed him when they did. I get the logic behind it, but I was enjoying him because I was enjoying his character because he was at least different from everything else that was going on, and it was a great counterpoint to what Cosmic Boy was trying to do, especially from the leadership standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did make a great deputy.
Yeah, and he would have made a great. Yeah, he was a great like sort of second. What is it like deputy leader? So.
Yeah.
I like that. The one thing I did, so I'm going to jump to 3-boot, and I got to be honest, for as dumb as the concept was, and the fact that they wrote him like an idiot, I actually didn't mind Microlad in 3-boot. And I'm sorry, I'm going to call him Microlad, even though the entire team wanted to call him, kept calling him Colossal Boy, because he wanted to be called Microlad. He's like, this is my name, and nobody would respect it. But I'm like, you want to be called this? You're Microlad.
The thing that made no sense to me with the whole Microlad thing is that isn't the whole thing that he comes from like big city, which is now in Antarctica, which is now in the position of like Australia because the axis has changed on the Earth?
Yes.
I'm like, but that would make the North Pole now where Metropolis is.
Right. I had the same question when they said that. I'm like, wait a minute.
Exactly. I was like, this doesn't work.
Although, well, to be fair, Metropolis is supposed to be this giant megalopolis at this point.
That's true, but it would put the North Pole right in the center of, like, North America.
Yeah. And to be fair, this is comic science. So it's the...
True.
It doesn't have to make sense, right? You just go like, oh, okay, this is different. Yeah, I mean, the whole, like, Bizarro Brainiac made all this race of giants on Earth, and he's one of them. And then when they introduce all the other ones, and you have all these giants that are fighting, and I'm like, okay, this is definitely like a Silver Age, just silliness. I like the fact that he was like kind of one of the only decent
He's
characters
essentially
in
like, what's his face? Gulliver from Gulliver's Travels amongst the Lilliputians.
Yeah.
He's like, the little people, you guys are so charming.
Yes. And then there was the great moment where they all went and stayed in his house. Yeah. And then didn't Ayla sleep with his brother?
Well, we were basically just using one giant bed as like a place for all of them to sleep. And she wakes up and his brother is there. And she's just like, I didn't know he had a brother. And they go, oh, don't worry, he's not interested in you. And she goes, what? He's not into little people? And they're like, no, he's gay.
Yeah. And that's actually, that scene is where we find out that they're Jewish.
Yes, because the brother has a little Star of David Nicholas.
And did they not do the same thing in Bendis Boot, where he was always tall and he shrank to be a...
Yes, that was the same conceit.
Yeah.
The Bendis Boot thing makes no sense to me, because he has a throwaway comment that he's just like, my people are born adult. And I'm like, that makes no sense.
Well, really the sentence, this part of Bendis Boot makes no sense, ... I
know, it's kind of a redundant statement.
Yeah, it's like, the sky is blue.
Oh, believe me, they changed Invisible Kid like 4 different times within 12 issues.
Yeah.
And Ayla, actually, too. Is she light powers or lightning powers? What? Pick one.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, and I mean, we talked a little bit about Retro Boot. He comes back, still married and still kind of trying to make it work. And I think that there was some nice little bits in there, and they brought his mom back as well. Like, Levitt's got to write that too. He does show up a ton, which is nice. Like well, it's nice and it isn't. Like, it's kind of, when you've got 22 characters, and I think they were up to 26 by Retro. Like, I think they just said, we're just going to have as many Legionnaires as we can. And you're writing out Ayla and Vi for like ever. It's like, they're going on vacation together. Boom. And then they're just gone. And you're like, okay, well,
one issue.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to see Colossal Boy, but it would have been nice to have everything else. He did also have the weirdest response. And I mentioned this in all the reviews, like, of all the characters who should be pissed off at Earthman and should want him off the team and should want to beat him. It should be him. Like, this guy literally beat his wife almost to death, and he's just like, I'm fine. Whereas Sunboy's the one who's like actively pissed. And I remember just reading this going like, I'm sorry, like, you beat my wife half to death. Like,
to be fair, Sunboy was tortured for months on end, so I think that they were both incredibly angry, but I feel like Colossal Boy should also have been more angry.
Yeah, because the Superman and the Legion, that storyline in action is really great.
It's my favorite, actually.
But he has a pretty upfront role in that story, just because
he's one of the few Earth Legionnaires, is that the ones who are left behind are the ones who are...
Exactly, and his wife is actively spying on what's going on. And so when everything starts to really get to the climax there, that's a great story. And with how things shake out, if I was Jim, I'd be really pissed.
Oh, I'd be pissed at a few things. Like, his wife is actively spying. He doesn't know about it.
Yes, he's not aware that she's there.
He's not aware she's doing it.
That she's like gone somewhere.
Yeah. And then, like the whole resolution, like I would just, I just remember reading this going like, well, like, one, I would never talk to Shadowlass again. Like, it would just be like, you're dead to me
on
so many levels. And
You do have to remember that, like, the Superman and the Legion story is, like, 5 issues, and it's written by, I think, Jeff Johns?
Yes.
And then, like, the following, like, run that has this same set of characters is written by somebody else and has nothing to do with it, really. It has, like, a completely different energy. And, yeah, they immediately turn around and make the dumbest decision possible.
Yes.
But we'll get into that in the later episode when we talk about Shadowlass, which is a long way
Oh my
away.
god. Even her best friend is like, what are you doing?
Sorry, we went down that rabbit hole. It's just because I'm reading those comics right now for the rereads.
But yeah, I reread them like yesterday to see Colossal Boy's retro boot stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. And I just sit there and I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Although when we get to, I guess, the retro, meaning the V6 version, I guess.
Yes.
And then when we get to New 52, which is V7, he's basically there at the very beginning and at the very end. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's move on to, we always talk about the characters that are closest connected to Colossal Boy. And we've already sort of mentioned a few, but I just want to go back to, like, in the original version, his best friend is Chameleon Boy because they join at the same time. There's a lot of really interesting stories with that. I mean, I think it's fascinating that he ends up marrying a Durlan when his best friend is a Durlan. Maybe that's why he's a little more accepting of all of this.
If anything, yeah, I would say he's probably the one member of the Legion who's most familiar with Durlans, and he's just like, of all the people who know that the prejudices that are running rampant are not true, it's him. He's the one who's like, I shouldn't be afraid of her. This is something totally normal. Like, I should be open to this. His friendship with Chameleon Boy is one of the most, like, heartbreaking parts of when when Yera is revealed, is that he and Element Lad, who he's also pretty good friends with, are the ones who take him out and are like, we're so sorry that we have to reveal this to you because we know it's going to break your heart.
It's a really, really great scene, and we probably didn't talk about it enough when we were talking about the Levitz run, because it's basically his best friend and one of his best friends saying, like, yeah, we. And I think his only comment was like, get me involved earlier, like, tell me earlier.
Is that he kind of has this like, oh god, I can't believe this is happening moment, and Element Lad is like, we're so sorry we couldn't tell you. We thought that if you learned, it might get out faster and she might like try and escape or something. To be fair, Gim is like, you're right. Like, if I knew about this earlier, it would have all gone down the window. But he then does say, next time something like this happens, let me know faster. And he punches Element Lad, and Element Lad's like, you know what? Fair.
Yeah. Yep. I'll take that one.
Yep.
Yeah. So Element Lad, I mean, it's really weird. I was doing some research and they always write about like Colossal Boy and Sun Boy being friends.
Yes, those two were also friends.
Yeah.
In that Best of DC 24, the one that's like the sequel to the Parents Turn to Glass story, Colossal Boy is once again looking for the guy who did this. And of all the people, Sun Boy is the one who's like, I'm going to be on your side with this. Like, we're going to find them and we're going to do it together. It's not really a friendship that we had seen before that, but it's definitely one that is a really sweet relationship.
Yeah, and you see them hanging out a lot in Volume 3 as well. Like you see the double dates and you see that, and like, it seems like Colossal Boy is one of the only people who's willing to put up with Sun Boy being a bit of a jackass.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's the one who, oh god, is it Gigi who finds out that like Dirk is maybe cheating on her, and she's just like, Jim, I need you to help me out here to essentially play Sun Boy, and he and Yera decide we're going to trick him into thinking that Gigi is cheating on him as well. Of course, the most healthy way to resolve this problem.
Yeah, no, I was a big fan of that particular issue.
Yeah, not a lot of healthy relationships when we talk about Sun Boy. We'll just go with
fighting
that.
fire with fire.
Yeah. And then trying to think who else he's connected with. I mean, it's obviously his wife, right?
Yep. And then his mother and father.
His mother and father. I think of like when we get into Reboot, obviously Violet as well. Like he's got a big connection with her. And then the Kinetics one, I always felt it was more like they were telling us this was going on, but they didn't show it so much. But that could just
thought it was just more of like a one-sided kind of crush. Like he's interested in her, but she doesn't really reciprocate it.
Well, I mean, she kind of does, because she's like, when they're having the girls' night out, she's like, oh, I wish Leviathan were here. But neither of them do anything with that particular, connection, right? So, yeah, there's an obvious crush there. And I think it goes a little bit of both ways from some of the scenes. But Yeah, it's never acted upon, and certainly it's not acted upon from Violet's perspective, right? Violet, one of the reasons Violet allows herself to get seduced by the Eye is so that she can get closer to Jim. So, with the obvious tragic consequences. But another character who obviously we want to make sure is connected with Leviathan in the reboot is Starboy. Because there's
Yes,
a dynamic between the two of the characters where, they're always at odds, it seems, as soon as Starboy comes onto the team. And Starboy makes a comment of, he was really tough on me, but I appreciate it. And it makes me a better person. So that was always a nice line.
It definitely seems like Tom got off on the wrong foot with him. Like, from
Yeah.
the very beginning, he was just kind of making mistakes, and Jim had no patience for it.
No, I agree. There was, they as soon as he lands, there's just all kinds of shenanigans happening.
There is at least one issue where they're like putting the headquarters back together, and
Yes,
Jim is like putting the final like plaster on the wall, and Tom just barrels right through it and destroys it. It's like a Looney Tunes episode.
Yep. Oh, it's even so, right? It's a great little relationship between the two of them, even though it's this frustration between the two of them. But
it's good. Anybody else that we missed?
Well, so here's another thing, and this gets oft overlooked from a reboot perspective. But did you know that he had a sister in the reboot?
Is that who that is? I had this question.
So in the Science Police miniseries, Gim Allon is his sister, who is a science police officer as well. Who, if you consider that particular miniseries canon for the reboot, then yeah.
I was actually thinking of a different issue when you said he had a sister. Is that Christmas issue where they first establish that he's Jewish? It's like a tiny panel that shows them celebrating Hanukkah, but you can very clearly see that it's him, his parents, and like a mystery woman. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, who is this? Who is this woman?
That's
like,
interesting.
Did he bring a date home? Is this a sister? Like, we have no idea who this is, and it's never brought up in the original continuity. So I guess maybe if he had a sister, that could explain who she was.
I'll have to go back and check that panel because I didn't.
It's a funny panel, especially because they're all sitting at the table, except that Jim is gigantic because for some reason he decided to let's do Hanukkah dinner 10 feet tall.
Yeah. Well, as you do, right?
He was going to eat all the leftovers.
Yes, it's if you're going to enjoy yourself, you have to have the biggest stomach possible, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
That works. It's kind of funny. It's this one panel from an issue that I guarantee you they didn't think more than 5 minutes about, and we're staring at it going, sister, girlfriend, and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez is just like, there we go, and Lovis is like, it's good, we'll figure it out. Nobody.
Believe me, that issue also has Karate Kid at home in Japan doing a tea ceremony for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, there's so many things going on here right now.
Yeah. With Projectra, who's just like,
yes, Projectra and Sunboy. Like, Projectra, if it was just him and Projectra, it would be normal. Like, okay, this is one of their dates. But like Sunboy, I'm like, did Sunboy have nowhere to go for Christmas? And they were like, all right, Dirk, you can come with us.
Or it's one of those things where he's walking around, what do you guys have plans? And everyone's like, oh, I gotta go. And then and Karate Kid was the last person there. He's like, all right, I guess I'm taking you. So we're going to Japan.
Boy.
All right. Yeah, I had completely forgot about the sister. So thanks for calling that out.
I barely remember it. It was just, it's just one of those things where like, oh yeah, okay.
And there's so many family issues. Like I remember there's the one Conway one where the guy kidnaps all of the relatives of the Legion.
Yes.
And you're looking through this and you're like, have they referenced any of these? Like, oh, Wildfire has parents. Like,
no, they had
never appeared again. Nothing like, like
it was just like 5 different Legionnaires' parents get kidnapped, and it's implied that there's like even more because like then also Wildfire mentions his parents. It's like we didn't even see them on panel.
Yeah, they were just like, we just need to come up with a story, and it's and the best is all the names that they give everybody, and as we joked before, it's all misspellings of something that we're doing now, and multiple daggles. Because Chameleon Boy's aunt, and it's bonkers.
Leia, I'm looking at the picture from the holiday special, and it's like, he's sitting at the table and he's huge, and then there's like a man and a woman who look way older than any other picture we've seen his parents.
His parents look.
And then there's this
old.
this blonde lady that's there. I don't know.
Maybe it was his grandparents and his aunt.
I have no idea. But yeah, speaking of the names, Jihei and I found like an actual academic paper that was going over how the superhero civilian names work in the 30th century. Somebody had actually analyzed, like, yes, all are about one letter or one syllable off from a real name that was popular at the time when they were created. And I was like, yeah, obviously. Did we need to make an entire academic paper for this?
Hey, somebody felt like they needed it, so I'm
I
not
think that was an easy A.
exactly.
Especially because I imagine the professor had no clue what they were talking about. So the writer just fills it with information. They're like, hey, you did a ton of research. Cool. And like you
Right,
just bury
exactly.
them under minutia. And it's like,
Stamp an A on that.
instead of Imra or instead of Irma, it's Imra and nobody will notice. So stuff like that. Let's talk about sort of the best Colossal Boy is during his time. Like if you were gonna say, if you wanted to say, like, if we were trying to convince somebody, hey, you should like Colossal Boy, which I think we kind of have to do with Jim, what would the stories be of, like, here's him at his best, here's him, like,
Leia, you go first.
I would definitely say the reboot story. I think him learning to be the second in command as opposed to the leader that he was supposed to be is a really humbling, really interesting moment for him. I think it's the most personality that we see in any portrayal of him in like one storyline. I think it's one of the best.
Yep, can't disagree. That's a good one. Jim, do you have one?
Well, I mean, I think you kind of have to go with Adventure 371 because that's his big first feature, just because, you want to say, hey, this is, unfortunately, there's not that many to actually pick from, but yeah, I mean, Leia's point of having the Tango Web mission is absolutely one. This one I think would be another because it's the one story they kind of did a redo of in order to also feature Colossal Boy, and then I'd also say probably the Emerald Vi storyline as well.
That's good. I mean, we've talked about it before. The whole Shrinking Violet story where he marries. I mean, that's a big one for me. The one that I kind of like to call out, but I don't think it gets a lot of attention, and it does suffer from the fact that the art keeps changing, and it's right before issue 50, is the Starfinger 2 story where he goes undercover to save Chameleon Boy, and it's really so he's going against his wife. He shouldn't be there. He's injured, but his buddy needs him and he's going to take this risk. And it's a much smaller story, but I think it shows, one, the kind of person he is, and two, like you get all these little beats of it. Like he's got to save his friend, but also he doesn't want to just sit around. Like he's a guy of, I have to go do stuff. We talked about this really earlier. He does stuff without thinking and he's immediately acting. And then when he suddenly can't, he does stupid things to make sure he's still in the action. And part of the characters are like, yeah, they're going to do stupid things, but that's who they are. Like, that's who the character is.
That is a part of the Starfinger story, is that when the two of them are both undercover and they get the chance to talk, and Reap is kind of like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, and I don't think he has a good answer. He's like, I'm trying to help you.
He honestly doesn't. He's just kind of like, I was injured and I knew you were in trouble and now I'm here and I can't really get out.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's who he is. It's kind of like you don't look before you leap. He just gets into the problems. Impulsive. And I think that's,
like I said, Levitz decided his one character trait was impulsive.
Yeah.
Now this is the annual, right? The V3 annual.
Well, it ends up on the annuals. It kind of goes through the regular story and then they wrap it up.
Issues.
Yeah. They wrap it up. But I mean, the problem is it's jumping between Greg LaRocque and then I think Pat Broderk's drawing this stuff, and it just, so the issues all feel a little bit disjointed. I just think it's a nice, like, here's Colossal Boy, failings and all. Like, here's the flaws, and it's not just this perfect Colossal Boy story. Because I think if you can say anything about his character, he might be the most imperfect Legionnaire, and he's probably the guy who's the least likely to be a Legionnaire, if that makes any sense. Like, his powers are a fluke. He doesn't really feel like he belongs there. And I think that's almost been in like every iteration. He's the one who's making mistakes. Like, so many of the Legionnaires are written as perfect, right? Like when Element Lad becomes leader, almost everything he does is right. Whereas like, it seems like everything Colossal Boy does is wrong.
I would argue that all the other Legionnaires have like a perfect depiction, but like, I definitely get what you mean, where like Jim makes a lot of mistakes and they definitely stand out, especially when he's comparing himself to the others.
Well, part of it too is his, I guess, predilection to just get zapped or knocked out or whatever, just because, he's a big target, right? So that's one of the things that I did notice going through these stories is that, man, a lot of times he gets big and then he gets taken out real quick.
There is a note in Jim Shooter's character notes If you guys have read those for
Oh,
all the
yes.
characters, yeah. I'm pretty sure that his note is basically like, being tall is one of the most psychological advantages you can have. So it wouldn't be surprising if Jim just kind of is like, people are intimidated by me. I'm so much stronger. I don't really need to think too much about the strategy of these things. I can just smash, 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 and I'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, he's extremely large, even in his, like, quote unquote normal form,
Yes.
right? So even when you extrapolate that
And
to
yet at the
our
same
set,
time, he constantly hits his head on things.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
there's a reason that his little half cowl headgear looking thing is designed to look like
yeah,
uh, a wrestling helmet or something. Like,
right,
I think
right,
this guy hits his head on things a lot,
Well, it's what happens when you're really tall. Like, so
pretty
I'm
much.
6'5", so there's a lot of head bumping on stuff.
yep,
Shooter was 6'7", so I mean, of anybody who would
That's
understand what
true.
it's like
That
to be
guy
the
was
tallest
gigantic.
person in the room. And I wonder if that's something they brought into it, because like when you're that much taller than everybody else, you kind of don't fit in. Like you're not in the group, and everything's everything's alternately easier and harder, if that makes any sense. So I wonder if that's kind of what they brought to it. I don't know. Like I don't know what Shooter was thinking when he was doing it, but he would be approaching that character from a very different take of you're the outsider, or you're the person who's
That is what always surprised me
yeah.
about the whole, well, I guess surprised and also fit really well about the relationship between Jim and the crush on Shrinking Violet is that, oh, of course it's funny, the big guy goes for the small girl, but at the same
yeah,
time I was like, wouldn't that be so intimidating? Tiny, and your boyfriend is gigantic.
yeah, yeah. It is kind of tropey. That as
Yeah,
we kind of
definitely.
mentioned that when we
I
talked
mean,
about in our last
it's like,
episode.
giant man and wasp. Like, this
Yeah,
trope has been done in superhero stories before.
yeah, exactly.
I'm just laughing. My wife's tiny. It's
And so,
I'm a living trope. So it's the excuse that I always give. And people always ask, like, why don't you go for, like, why didn't you date a taller woman? I'm like, everybody's short to me. So the difference between like
everybody's
5 and 5'4" and 5'6" is nothing. So
Yeah,
none of that matters anymore. And so
yeah.
I think I would prefer a guy who was closer to my height, if only just because I want to be able to beat him in a fight if I need to.
if that's your concern going into it, then yeah,
Hey, I
just
was
learn
in
some
a fist
jujitsu.
fight in like fourth grade and I won, so
I don't doubt
There
it.
you go.
So I am fairly certain my wife could beat the crap out of me, and I do. Even as she's giving up like 100 pounds, I'm like, well, one, I'm not going to fight back, but two, she's far fiercer than I am. So she'd kick the crap out of me. So I live with that. All right, moving off my own personal relationship and how this has become therapy. The worst appearances of Colossal Boy, I'm going to wait to the end so I can rant about the 5 years later annual, unless anybody else wants to start on that. But worst Colossal Boy stories.
I mean, I guess it would just, for me, the fact that he's going after the girl who he already knows has a boyfriend, like, it's definitely a bad move to make. And everybody's questioning it too. Oh, well, I guess most of the time people are like, why is Shrinking Violet going after him as opposed to why is he going after her from the point of view of most of the Legionnaires? But it is still, a social faux pas.
Yeah, well, I mean, she did also take Matter Eater Lad out on a date while she was
That is
dating
true.
Duplicate Boy. So I mean,
Her
yeah,
relationship with Duplicate Boy is a whole other can of worms,
yes,
but
yeah,
We'll get to that one when we talk about Vi.
yeah, it's
no, believe
problematic
me.
at best. Yeah, yep. Jim, do you have a worst Colossal Boy moment?
Man, this is a tough one. I mean, just because he's so like not used so much, or even across all these years, that it's like when you see him in something, you're like, oh my gosh, hey, look at that. So I'm gonna just kind of generically say here, like I mentioned a little bit ago, the fact that almost every time he's used and he gets big, something just zaps him like within a panel or two, and he's just out of the count. So it's like most of the uses of Colossal Boy are just kind of useless. Let's
Does
just say
that
that.
kind of count as warfing him? Like, you take out the biggest, most powerful guy first just to show how powerful you are, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, which is kind of tropey too, right? And so, but that's why I made a couple notes here where, just a couple times where he actually wins the fight, like when he fights against the Space Genie. Back
God,
in
this
this is
Space Genie.
266 and 267, he actually knocks out the genie. He's actually the guy who clocks him.
That is one of my favorite bits of those super tropey stories, is the fact that I think it's Bouncing Boy and Duo Damsel who come and they're just like, a space genie is here, and Jim is like, are you serious? A genie? like the mythical creature? Come on, Chuck, you're also from Earth. Like, how do you think this is real?
Well, that's Jerry Conway writing 200 pages a month.
That is still my favorite part, is when the genie shows up and Jim is like, oh my god, you weren't lying.
Well, I think, as we've said multiple times, like, he's the perfect background character. He's the big guy that they put in the back with the costume that stands out.
Yes.
And my joke of he's constantly dying, because you can draw a gigantic skeleton and get the impact. And he kind of exists more as set dressing than as a person in a lot of these stories.
He even made his way into the animated series. He has a few lines in season 1 where he has
one of the
best jokes in that show.
And he never had a did he ever have a line of dialogue?
Yeah, he did. He had a few.
Yeah, okay.
It's in the episode Chain of Command, when they're all going to Wynneth to like fix their weather system, and they're in like a tiny buoy to go down to the planet. Brainiac 5 goes, are you sure you don't shrink any smaller, Colossal Boy? And Jim just goes, we'd have more room in here without your big head.
Yeah, and then there's that one line where he and Cosmic Boy are interacting, and they're like, hey, CB1.
Hey, CB1. CB2.
Yeah. All right, can I start? Can I start my hatred of 5 years later, Colossal Boy?
Wind him up. We wound you up now.
Go off, King.
Okay, so
hang on. Let me get comfortable. Hang on.
Yeah, there you go. So everybody get your drink of choice. This is I'm going to try to be as concise as possible, but we know I don't do that. So, of all the character assassination that happens in 5 years later, and God knows there's a ton of it, and you can probably make the argument Sunboy gets it worse. Colossal Boy
Sunboy gets terrible.
Right. Colossal Boy is horrible to me. Every single choice they make for him. So starting with the the Dominators are destroying Earth. Colossal Boy, who's with the science police, is in a position to actually maybe do something, and instead chooses to do absolutely nothing to help his home planet. And I'm like, that is not who this character is. As I've talked about before, this is a moral character who makes moral choices. And yet, when they're all on Wynneth for the christening of the new twins, what does he do? He cheats on his wife with Duo Damsel.
Oh my god, I forgot about
And I'm like,
I think I had to erase that from my mind.
And I'm like, you have to be kidding me. And in the same issue, they reveal that he gets Yera to pretend to be other Legionnaires so he can sleep with all of the female Legionnaires. I have, that is an issue that is, the closest I've ever come to just throwing a comic across the room. That is the issue that does it. And for me,
this is literally the episode of Young Justice when they do the same thing and they get caught doing it.
And it's again, if it had been Sunboy who was married to a Durlan, I'd be like, okay, absolutely. Sunboy's a bit of a dirtbag, cool. Even as the hero, if it had been, I'm trying to think of another Legionnaire where I'd say yeah, I can see that. Or even when they revealed Alter Boy's single because his, he thinks Phantom Girl is dead and he sleeps with Dream Girl every once in a while. I'm like, okay, they're all in their 30s, they're both single. I can see something like that happening. But this is it was just
it's very out of character.
Yeah, this isn't this character. What are you doing here? It's just a shock value. And I mean, I've ranted a few times about how Bouncing Boy should have dumped Duo Damsel countless times during the OG run. But this is one where I'm just okay, you've dragged her down. Now you're dragging him down. What's the purpose of this? These aren't heroes anymore. And at the end of the day, for all of his failings and for all of the things we've talked about, how he gets stuff wrong and he's impulsive and he makes mistakes, he's still essentially a good person and a good hero. And that's his center. And with one story, they basically went, nope, he's a piece of crap. And especially if you buy the whole Duo Damsel has multiple personalities and is not actually mentally healthy. So you could make the argument he's just taken advantage of a former teammate.
It's even worse.
Exactly. This just doesn't get better when you're going over this. And the fact that every other Legionnaire in that story treats him I'll say shit. I try my best to not to make this kid friendly, but they treat him like shit from start to finish. And I'm like, wow, nobody has any respect for this guy. And it's just okay, Beer Bombs, you don't like Colossal Boy, but geez, you didn't have to do this. This is 50 knives in the back to a character who, look, there is not going to be a 6-issue miniseries about Colossal Boy that's going to sell 500,000 copies. There are no comic book fans that are screaming for this. But this is a longtime member who's been around for now over 60 years, you don't have to do them that dirty. I think it's just what it
Yeah.
is. So yeah,
It's the comic equivalent of like, if you had nothing good to say, don't say anything at all. Like, if you don't like the character, you don't have to use them.
like I mean, it's almost like I've said this many, many times. Like the character who survived 5 years later the best is Phantom Girl because they hated her and they wrote her out. And like I almost wish they had just said, "Here's the 6 characters we hate. We're shoving them all back into Legion 89, so that somebody else can actually do something valuable with them
Yeah,
instead
I
of
mean,
what ends up happening."
yeah, I agree. I agree with everything both of you are saying. Right? That's exactly right. If you have a problem with a character, just don't use them. Don't turn them into a jerk. While y'all were talking, I went and because I thought on Tom Bierbaum's blog he would have at least talked about this because he does retrospectives on a lot of the issues. I didn't see anything about that particular issue, but I just did a general search for Colossal Boy. Yeah, but yeah, it's just an odd choice. Come on. What are you doing here?
Well, because that's the same issue where they reveal that Lightning Lad's Prody. So
Yes.
that's the one that gets all the attention because that's the big one that pissed everybody off.
Yes.
Yes.
But this is the one where like the whole thing that they do where they have them all together, every page of that is just garbage. Like what they do to the characters, like it's just absolute hot stinking garbage. Like the fact that they have 6 female legionnaires, 6 male legionnaires spying on each other because they're all naked and they're acting like a bunch of 15-year-olds going like, "Hey, Princess Projector's naked," and Chameleon Boy's scanning through binoculars, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, what is this? And that's the whole book. And surprisingly enough, Colossal Boy gets the worst of it. Like it just, I don't get it. Anyways, I will now calm down. I'm going to have a nice drink and then
Rant over.
Yes, thank you very much. That was my rant. So this is why I'm like, I don't think we want to have anybody from 5 years later on this podcast. And we're done. All right, please, you guys take over.
Well, I guess the next thing that we want to talk about, since we're getting a new Legion soon in the next several months, what do you think we should do with him moving forward?
That is a good question. Honestly, I have no idea what kind of Legion we're going to be getting.
True enough.
To be honest, I have like no idea what to expect or what to hope for, because I have no idea if we're going to be continuing from what we've seen. I mean, if we're using what's left of the Legion from after that massacre that we saw, Superboy Prime saw, there won't be a Colossal Boy in this Legion. Because I think all of them are dead unless they create a new one or they use the dark side version of him. So I really have no idea what to expect. I mean, at least the dark side Legion seems to be mostly similar to the originals from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, it seems to have a little bit of everybody, right? So
That is true. It also has like the female Kid Quantum and
yep, and excess and folks like that. So we'll have to see because they're being rather blithe with how they handle some of these characters as well, with regards to killing some of them on panel of the Dark Side Legion, that is, and obviously they've killed a lot of the other Legionnaires from the other legions on panel as well. So
I mean,
we'll have to see how they handle this, because I think one theory that I've seen been espoused online quite a bit is that the new Legion is going to be the Dark Side Legion just reformed.
that's what I wouldn't be surprised by.
But
I mean,
it's a
I've
weird
also
choice,
seen
right?
I've also seen theories, this is just throwing stuff out there, that like all the people who have died in the whole DCKO event are going to get brought back in some way. I mean, obviously they're not going to kill off all the Justice League characters. That would be insane. So clearly something is going to happen that will bring a lot of people back, and that might include the Legionnaires. Or we might get some kind of medley of new interpretations. Like, I think Legion number 5 might be kind of pushing it, but it would be interesting to see new interpretations of them if that's what we're going to get. I mean, I have no idea what Joshua Williamson writes like, simply because I haven't read his stuff before. I'm looking forward to seeing what he would do with a new interpretation of the Legion.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen that. Obviously, we've seen the Dark Side Legion Colossal Boy, and he seems to be a very mean individual, as he should be. But in the Legion of Darkseid run in Superman, we've seen the Bendis Gold Lantern, we've seen Kinetics. In the Darkseid Legion itself, like you said, we've seen Kid Quantum 2, we've seen XS. So there's obviously he's obviously looking at the entire run of Legion and picking these characters very intentionally. So it'll be interesting to see what they do and how they do it.
I mean, I would not be opposed to just kind of having a mishmash of iterations, like, say we only have one Brainiac 5, but it kind of cherry picks all the best qualities from the previous iterations. Like, I would not be opposed to that at all, even if maybe it changes the history of the things that he's been through. Same thing with Gim. Like, if we get the best elements of each version of him, that would be probably my favorite way of going about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, as we're talking about this, like, we think about sort of what are the things that make Colossal Boy the character he is. And like, you talk about Reboot, that sort of different kind of leadership. And to me, like, that's a great story point. Like, when you're putting the team together, is you have, like, there's the Cosmic Boy version, there's the Colossal Boy version, and to have him sort of be the more military, the more rules, the more law and order, and it's a counterpoint to the more freewheeling Legionnaires. So you can have a little bit of fun with that, and you can really play up that character. I think as well, I actually, if they're doing like 20-year-old Legion, like if so it's not like 15-year-olds, I kind of want him to stay married, and I kind of want him to stay married with Yera.
I would want him to be with Yera.
Yeah, because to me, like, that's such a great dynamic of, because it's not a Legionnaire. It's an outside the team romance, and it's
similar to him, to Jan and Siobhan. Like, I do love the relationships of one is a Legionnaire and one has this window to kind of the outside world. Like, what is the rest of the universe seeing as opposed to the Legion?
That all depends on where, if they're pulling them from a specific point in time, where they do it. Because in the, I guess if we're going to call it the retro boot, right? Yera is actually a full-fledged member at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Even when she gets blasted back in time and Legion lost. So
I was so confused by what was going on with Yera, because she was like a Legionnaire, but then also she seemed to be getting like acting gigs on the side. I'm like, is she a part-time Legionnaire now?
Yeah, I prefer that she's not. Like, I just like having this character who's outside the team and but also is like, has a bunch of powers. So she's not that damsel in distress that he has to save. Like, she's actually the equal, but he goes and does his job and she goes and does her job. And I think you could have a lot of fun with those characters. I mean, when we were talking about Chameleon Boy on that episode, like, just imagine the issue where Gim finds out that, I was saying, like, they choose gender when they turn 18 as Durlans. So she's not actually born male or female. Like, his brain having to comprehend, like, she's wasn't a woman like 5 years ago or whatever. And again, you can play with stories. You can do so many different things just by having that extra character and that extra dynamic. So
we know that Gim is, at least in the original continuity, very comfortable with her shapeshifting, even to things that are not human. Like, when he brings her to dinner with his parents for the first time, or is it a different issue? Like, shape changes rapidly to a whole bunch of things, and his reaction is like, oh, you're so entertaining. Like, living with you is like being in a 10-ring circus.
Well, it's that, I mean, again, have that fun with the open-mindedness. Like, again, there's stories you can do with that, right? Like, you can really do a lot of stuff with this. So hopefully they're able to, I mean, again, I think that's just a key part of this. So the other one, of course, for how they're going to use him moving forward is, do we want him to have a horrible costume like he's always historically had, or do you want them to try to give him something good? Because of all the characters of the Legion, right, had the worst collection of costumes of anybody.
He does have that red and blue design that looks like kind of a wrestling outfit.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's really the best I can describe it. I will say I do love his logo, because it has additional meaning to it. Like, if you don't know, his symbol is literally like the male symbol, like the little circle with an arrow pointing up out of it. So layers there, but also, if you didn't know, in astrology, it is the symbol for Mars. So it works on multiple levels, especially if here's the one coming from Mars, if it's like the reboot.
What about the one where it's like an eagle? What is...
Well, the weird thing that he has like on his chest.
Yeah.
I had no idea what that was supposed to be. Yeah, it's kind of like the old SHIELD logo from the 60s.
Yeah, or something. I don't know. I mean, I like the way that the spin on it that Gary Frank did in Superman and the Legion, because he's
Mhm.
not wearing the headgear and it's a little bit more, I don't know, casual's probably the best word I can have about it, but it's a little bit more, battle worn and loose. So it looks more like something that you see a Legionnaire wear versus a wrestling outfit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's. I mean, again, I think as long as they're, I don't want to say doing right by the character, but as long as they're giving him his distinct, as long as he's not background filler, then I'm happy, right? Like whatever they go with, like just, and that's the big thing with a book like this is when you're dealing with so many characters, you just want a writer who's going to say like, I'm going to do everybody right as I see it, and even if I don't agree with it, I at least give them the spotlight, at least give them the thing, like at least show them for what they can do, because all of them have value and all of them have fans, right? And this episode is a perfect example. Like we're talking about a Legionnaire who probably will never make somebody's top 5 list.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
I
also
recently
will.
saw somebody who did.
Oh, no, perfect.
Somebody on the Legion subreddit made a tier list of the Legion, and they put him in I am not well. And I was just like, you're into tall guys, aren't you? And they were like, oh, how could you tell?
Yes. Okay, there we go.
Okay, so here's the ultimate question when we're talking about any future iteration of Gim Allon: hat or no hat?
I'd go with hat simply because it kind of creates like an environmental storytelling of like, oh, this guy had to learn how to adjust to using his powers. Like I said, I think he has it because he's hit his head multiple times on things. So I think it kind of tells us like, oh, this is a guy who has made some mistakes with using his powers already and has adjusted appropriately.
Yeah, I want the headgear for a couple of reasons. One, head protection, but two, so he doesn't look like everybody else.
That is true. It really helps if you're using like a headshot.
Yeah, like because I mean, I think there's a lot of the old comics where you go like, is that Colossal Boy? Is that Ultra Boy?
Right.
Is that Star Boy? Like if you're just getting profile. Yeah. So I like that, and also, I mean, I hate to say this, I actually think the bad costumes are kind of a nice touch of the character. Like they show that it's the awkwardness of the character there, that he's never the coolest guy in the room. He's never I think in terms of like I always, this is going to sound like a crazy comparison, but just stick with me on this. I always kind of see him as sort of like the Cyclops, where like he's like Cyclops always just has the regular X-Men costume. Like he never gets to do anything like, or it's very rare. And like, he always looks, especially like I think of like the Grant Morrison, he looks awkward in them when he's like, when it's even something remotely stylish. And I think it's kind of the same thing. Like, let him just be the, like kind of that police officer, like just give me the uniform. I don't want to have to think about this. And as soon as I do, bad things happen.
I think I would debate Cyclops having uninteresting costumes, but this is not an X-Men podcast.
No, that's good.
I will say I have a hard time imagining Jim in anything but the like red and blue outfit that he's had the entire time. I mean, he did have the like green cowboy outfit to start with, but that's hideous.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to vote for no headgear, but because like Violet very well said, it's a stupid hat.
Oh, right.
But anyway, now I will say though, I think it would be kind of cool because I like both what both you guys said about being distinctive and there's meaning behind it. And if you do one like in the reboot, the headgear that he had was a little bit more chunkier than just kind of that form-fitting kind of head sleeve. Kind of cool to have some function to it, right? To have like some heads-up display or some kind of stuff that can help augment his ability or something extra, right, that it does other than just be basic head protection. So anyway, that's just the sci-fi nerd in me seeing what kind of cool stuff can we add into the mix here.
It would be cool to kind of show his history or roots as like a science police officer if like he just keeps like the helmet from when he was in training.
Yeah.
And that has some kind of like heads up display built into it.
Yeah, that's neat.
Then again, the science police officers have hideous helmets in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a new Legion, so it's all bets are off.
Yeah, I have a strange feeling if it's Dan Mora designing all of this, and I think it is.
If it's Dan Mora designing this, I will love every single character.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're not going to get any ugly helmets. It's going to
exactly. Well, it's probably going to be something similar to what his Dark Side Colossal Boy looks like,
which does have some headgear.
Yes, and it's more classic as far as the what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have talked as much about Colossal Boy as we can.
Okay.
Unless Jim's already like, no, we've missed something. Sorry.
Well, no, I found something here at the risk of spinning Jay up again. I found the log entry from Tom Bierbaum. And so
You did.
yes. And so the paragraph in question basically says, we strongly imply that the married Gim has a fling with the married Luornu and leave it to the readers to decide if it was really Yera disguised as Luornu or a clue that something is up with Lu. At this point, there is supposedly only one surviving Luornu body, and this was really intended as a clue that the second body, seemingly killed late in Paul's run, was still around and was behaving rather badly. Sure enough, she'd show up in later issues to cause the Legion a good deal of trouble. So, there you go.
I get the feeling that that's something that when the issue first came out, everybody was like, this is bullshit. And then they kind of had to come up with a loophole.
Well, that you can say that with a lot of the retcons that they ended up pulling.
My question is always this: how does any of that make it better?
Pretty much.
Right.
Because it's either like, so you sit there and go, so either he cheated or he's got his wife pretending to be other Legionnaires, which is just,
that's creepy.
Like, yeah, creepy as hell. Or he slept with the evil twin of Duodamsel, which is still not good. Like, there's no good thing here. Like, there's no one where you go like, hey, this is a cool thing. Like, it's all bad. And I'm
like I
okay,
said,
so yeah.
This is like that episode of Young Justice where they do the same thing. And they basically have to like sit down Miss Martian and Superboy and be like, what are you doing? And they're like, no, don't worry. It's a Martian game. Like, we do this all the time. Nobody gets hurt. Everybody knows what's going on. And Black Canary, who is the one she was trying to impersonate, is like, yeah, please don't. I don't care what Martian game this is. This is making me uncomfortable.
Yeah, we do things a little bit differently over here.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Yeah, like we also think in terms of like the whole reason why Yera is here is because she impersonated a female Legionnaire who was held hostage, and like, really, we're gonna call back to that? Like, yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry, thanks for winding me up again.
You're welcome.
When they went to the baptism for the first kids in the 80s, when it was still the Levitz run, and it's like the first time the Shrinking Violet and Yera are in the same room together, Violet is giving her the stink eye, and Yera is like, Jim, make her stop. And Jim is literally like whistling off to the side, like, I'm gonna ignore what's happening right now.
Well, because again, I think he's pretty certain that Shrinking Violet's going to kick the crap out of him. So he's just like,
he knows that he's made a mistake here, but he doesn't really know how to fix it.
He's just awkward. Okay. Anything else you want to say to piss me off about 5 years later?
I'll think about something, but it'll be like 5 minutes after we finish here. So
I just have about 5 or 6 points for the Shrinking Violet episode now, so we're just going to go with that. So it's all good. No. All right. I think like I say, I think we said as much about Colossal Boy as we can. Here's the one, my last little thing that I want to say, and I think, because we can never end these episodes quickly, is this. Colossal Boy, to me, is just this perfect example of, like, people become fans of characters for reasons that maybe don't make any sense, and then they stick with them, and it can be a little tiny point of the character that calls in, and we still love them, and I hope comic writers understand that, right? Like, we mentioned this, like, we have a Jewish superhero. So for a lot of Jewish people, this is the only superhero that we see in the comic pages. So you make a bit bigger connection. In my case, like, I have referenced the fact that I am taller than most people in the world. So I can relate to Colossal Boy being freakishly tall. And maybe that's part of why I'm connected to him. So I will have more of an emotional contact there. And we have these weird connections with characters. And then the flip side, there's characters that we hate. And in the case of Jim, I think you just find him boring because there's no entrance to that. And that's fine. That's normal. Like, look, well, I have taken enough crap over the last 5 years about my dislike for Matter Eater Lad from longtime Legion fans. And I'm just like, okay, I accept that you love him. I'm trying to see the positive, but I just can't connect to him. But as a writer, I would never say, okay, I'm killing this guy as soon as I get a moment, because you have to understand fans have these emotional connections for reasons that you... Yeah.
I mean, to be clear, I'm only kind of just joking for a lot of this stuff because, when I was kind of looking through here and with some of the stuff that I noted, it's like, I wish they would have used him more, right? Because it's like when he is used, half the time he's just knocked out, and it's like, come on, guys, he's a hero, make him be a hero, right? And then to what everybody's saying here, I actually do relate a lot to how he is as a person, as a character. So yeah, I do like the character. Don't all joking aside, and yeah, I just want them to be, or I want the character to be done right.
I think that's all we want for the next version. Like, just do the character right, make the choices, and we'll live. Like, if he's not married, so be it. But if it's a good, well written character, like that's what we want from every Legionnaire. Like, just give us well written characters that we care about, right? And don't have them, do weird things at a christening. Anyways.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I did not remember that story until you guys brought it up. I thought that I had read through a lot of my review for Jim's appearances, and then I realized I completely missed that.
Yeah.
I wish I could forget some of the 5 years later stuff. Like, I just wish. Anyways, let's just move on. Otherwise, I'm going to start again. So normally this is when we ask, like, Leia, like, where can everybody find you online if you want them to, or where can somebody reach out to you, or do you have something that you want to share? Anything that you can tell us?
Yeah. Well, first of all, my friends and I, Jihei and Ada, who are also on the Legion Discord that you guys found me on, we've been wanting to do a podcast of our own, which is hilarious because when I first joined the Discord and I said that I wanted to do one that focuses character by character, Jim was like, uh-oh, you kind of have already got that idea going.
But you said you were going to do like 3-hour long.
Yeah, we want to really do like as in-depth as we can. And like, to be honest, even with the stuff with Colossal Boy, like I would love to go more in depth in how good of a representation he is as a Jewish character and his relationship with his mom and how that has its own problems. But we just don't have the time to do that on like an hour-long thing like you guys have. And we also want to go kind of more off the deep end. No theory is too crazy or too weird. And we also want to kind of bring up the old tradition of let the fans decide. You guys go kind of in order of induction into the Legion. We were thinking like, well, why don't we let people choose? We could do someone that you guys won't get to for years. Like Tellus or Quizlet. That would be super fun to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were going to call it Legion Roll Call. I had set up social medias and stuff in advance. They're pretty much all just Legion Roll Call, and I can give you guys the link tree after we're done here so you can link everybody to it in the description if you'd like.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, just because I took a lot of notes of like all the different appearances and stuff like that.
Believe me, I take extensive notes on everyone.
Barely touched a lot of what I took notes on, so probably same with you. So you can go deep with all of these characters and all these different versions of the characters, right? So so I would say, not to speak for Jay, but I mean, I think you got 2 subscribers right here whenever you guys start this up. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a while to go just because we're still only partway through all the reading. We want to get it all done in advance. And also, Jihei is still in school, so we kind of have to wait for breaks for her to have time. But yeah, we really do want to do this at some point when we have the opportunity.
Yeah, and it's an awesome idea. I think there's a lot of people who want to hear that too.
I'm also on the Legion subreddit as Arumidden, which is spelled Arumidden. That's probably one of the easiest places to find me otherwise. Trying to think if there's anything else. But yeah, I also set up an email for Legion Roll Call at Gmail if you guys don't have any of those social medias that we're going to link to. So that is an option as well. Feel free to send us questions about characters that you would want us to talk about.
And Jim, where can everybody find you if they want to check out your stuff?
Oh, lots of places. So I have a Legion and just comics reviews website at jimboslegion.blogspot.com. You can find me personally on Blue Sky at jimbofett.bsky.social, on Reddit at jimbofett87, and on Discord as jimbofett on the Legion Fan Club Discord, where we met Leia, as well as the Certain Point of View Discord. How about you, Jay?
So you can find me on Discord and Reddit under the username Drake Burrows. And again, you can find me on the Legion Discord as well. And I just want to say this. If what Leia told you sounds like an awesome idea, get on that and let her know. Like, just give her that encouragement to say, I would be a subscriber. Please start doing this. Because I know one of the worst things when you start thinking about a podcast is anybody going to listen to this? And the more support you can get right from the beginning it would just be an awesome thing. So if you can do that, because I love the idea, I think it sounds a lot of podcasts when they get to the 3-hour range, you're like, and I'm zoning out. But 3-hour deep dives on Legion characters sounds like the best way for me to handle my commute, getting to work. Back to me. I also write a Legion review column weekly. You can find that at jamlonglivethelegion.blogspot.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky at jmckernan.bsky.social. And the Legion, the Long Live the Legion podcast itself, where can they find us, Jim?
Well, if you want to follow the podcast or get access to the Legion Discord, where you can find all three of us, we are at longlivethelegion.bsky.social, or send us an email and tell us what you think at longlivethelegion2025@gmail.com. Give us a 5-star rating on your podcatcher of choice. Hell, give us 2. It'd be even better. So thanks for listening again. Thank you, Leia, for joining us on a fun discussion about Colossal Boy. It's been great having you here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And then until we see you all next time, we're going to shut down the mission monitor board and say, long live the Legion.
Long live the Legion.
Long live the Legion.
Hey.
Oh, hey, Jeff.
What's going on, guys?
Oh, talking about Superman.
Oh, cool. I could talk about Superman.
I could talk some more about Superman.
We know.
I'll bet a few people would want to get in on this.
I'm down.
You know it.
That sounds like fun. I'll do it.
Cool, let's do it. We can call the show Men of Steel.
And you can find it at certainpov.com.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yay.